Welcome in. You have found We Like the Blazers. I am Connor Bergen. That is Brandon Mullen. And today we have a very special treat on the show, a special guest. We are introducing from Portland Trail Blazers Broadcasting, Lamar Hurd. Lamar, welcome. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you, Conor and Brandon. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we are really catching your nomadic lifestyle right now. You are coming to us from an undisclosed location in New York City, preparing for the Blazers to take on the New York Knicks on Sunday.
The Knicks of New York.
The Knicks of New York. Are you getting used to the travel lifestyle? 9 seasons into covering an NBA team full time.
Man, I could spend my whole time with you guys talking about the travel. I am used to it. It is the one part of the job when people ask, like, for instance, we go as Blazer announcers and we do this Rip City rally each September where we go to 5 different cities around the state of Oregon. We just get a chance to connect with communities that are kind of rural or just not very close to the city of Portland, people who don't always have a chance to come to the Blazers. We instead go to them. And one thing we do a lot of times is a school assembly where we give the kids a chance to ask a lot of questions. And one question we get every season is, what's the hardest part of your job? And for me, the answer has been consistent for a really long time now, and it's the travel part of the job. And I tell them, like I'll tell you guys, it's not a complaint. I'm very grateful to have this job and to be able to work in sports. It's what I've always wanted to be able to do. So I'm grateful, and I'll take it all day long. And it's something coming into the role that you're signing up for this kind of travel. So I know it's part of the deal. It doesn't make it any more fun, though. And it is the part for me, because I love being at home, around home. My wife is home. My wife is my best friend. I love being able to wake up and go to sleep every night next to her. I just love the concept of my home life. And I would prefer that rather than a day like today. We went from Sacramento cross country here to New York. We're here for an extra night, which, as I'm talking, and this will happen when I'm saying this to students, they're thinking, wait, an extra night in New York City? And and what I tell them is, you got to find what fits you the best. Like, there are some people who, to them, this is the job, the trip, the travel of a lifetime. And if that's you, by all means, like, revel in that, like, bask in that. But for me, I have gotten used to the travel. I don't enjoy it, but I'm grateful for it, if that all makes sense. And here we are winding down now, end of the season. One thing that does help travel is traveling for a purpose. And the Blazers are playing purposeful basketball at a level this time in the year, late in March, that they haven't the last few seasons. So I'm definitely looking forward to the games. Some good opponents coming up. And, it all counts right now. The Blazers still mathematically have a shot at making that play-in tournament that they want to be a part of.
Yeah, it's so refreshing for fans, I think, to have more meaningful basketball in March. And Chauncey even talked about it. Like, this is the first time in his career with the Blazers that he's been coaching more meaningful games in the spring. Yeah. And I was thinking about that. Like, we talked so much about how Chauncey inherited a team that was a bunch of veterans, and then the roster hit a reset. And he's talked about that perspective. And I'm wondering what that perspective is like from a broadcaster like yourself to get to know a whole new team, a lot of young guys, and be watching their developmental journeys along with the rest of us.
Yeah, well, this year, I would say less than the last 3 seasons. I haven't felt that I need to get to know a whole new team, because what's happened the last, I think, 3 seasons, I think I have that number right, the last few seasons, after the All-Star break, we've had to get to know a lot of new guys. Like, there was a time, I'll never forget, we were in Memphis at the end of one season, and we got a notification, we got an email that somebody just signed a 10-day contract. And we weren't aware of who the player was. We get on the bus, and the player is there on the bus. And we're at least we think that's the player, because we didn't know who he was. So, and we're used to, when we get on the bus to go to the arena, you're used to knowing who's normally on this bus, who's the staff, who's the players, and there's just this random face. And so, like, that kind of thing became normal. It wasn't even super odd, because that's just where the team was at that time. So for this season, being able to have a group of guys from start to basically finish that we get to know early on, we get to convey who they are, what their game is, how they play, all of that to the fans throughout a season consistently. That is really nice. But even if that's not the case and there are a bunch of new guys, I take that really seriously. I think it's still an opportunity to do what my job is well, and that's to tell those people's basketball stories. They're still NBA players. They're people who have families, friends, loved ones watching them play, and that stuff is meaningful. And I think we try and have done a decent job of going into those games, into those seasons, including this one, where even though the Blazers aren't the Blazers of old, where it was the Damian Lillard-led Blazers, when you're not talking about necessarily trying to make the playoffs, but sometimes it's, do we have home court advantage in the first round? So even though it's not the story right now, our approach is still the same, and that's what I try to take in every game.
So you've gotten to know the players better, and, you know, obviously teams benefit when the players get to play with each other for more than like 6 months at a time, and they build rapport. You've been working with KC since 2016. I'm curious how your relationship with Kevin Calabro has changed and how the way that you approach broadcasting has changed as you and him have gotten to work more and more. It's been nearly 10 years. Tell us about that relationship.
Well, Brandon, you would probably remember this because I know you were around, because I remember learning about you early on in our time when you had the long hair. I remember that.
Yeah.
Connor, I don't remember if you were around then at that time, but when Kevin and I first started, it was a bit of a rough start, not for he and I personally working together, because we had worked together before. We had worked together several years in Fox Sports Northwest with the Pac-12 network. We had done games before, and we've always been fine. But this was our first time working together for the Portland Trailblazers, and knowing what that meant. That was different for us, being team announcers together. Kevin had done it with the Sonics. But for me, even though I was kind of known as the Oregon State guy when I would do games with the Pac-12 or Fox Sports Northwest, I wasn't rooting for Oregon State, or I didn't go into games as a professional with a vested interest in Oregon State over the other team. I wanted to call the game as it was. And you know, when there's a player that played at a school or played for a team, that it is more likely than not that they are wanting to see that team do well. But I never wanted to carry that into games. So this was our first time working as a team with this certain condition. And early on, it was tough for us, I would say, not from the standpoint of knowing one another or knowing what to do, but just how do we best be ourselves while also representing this team appropriately, while also letting the fan base know, hey, we're on your side. Because, I mean, it's no secret. We were coming in, replacing Mike and Mike, who had done an incredible job for years. I lived in the Portland area since 2007. So from 2007 till 2016, when I got the position, I was watching those guys just like all of you guys were. And when they were let go of, I was as shocked as everybody else. But the thing is, nobody knew that. Like, for me, coming in and be a Blazer announcer, I didn't reach out to the Blazers. The Blazers reached out to me. It wasn't something I was seeking. I wasn't trying to attack a job. So there's all these things that went into it where it's like, man, we all want to be on the same team. We want to be with you guys. And so what Kevin and I think really kind of settled into at a certain point was like, we just gotta do us. And this thing is going to flow the way it needs to flow. And there's going to be some people who, it's like a bit of a mourning when people lose their team announcers and there's a change and how it goes. And I understood that. And so we just knew, man, let's just represent this team. Let's be ourselves. And I think we kind of settled into that over a season or two as time went on, as we also learned the fan base as well, as we learned the players, as we learned Coach Terry Stotts and how he likes to do things, as he was the coach at the time. So the more we got to just learn and kind of just settle into the environment, I think we've been good to go since then.
Yeah. So you talked about living in Portland since 2007, but I think there's such so you must have been seeing it then, but I think there's such a like spirit behind the Portland fan base growing up in Portland. Maybe it's like homerism, but I also think it's part about
maybe it's like homerism. It's homerism.
Maybe it's homerism. Maybe it's bias. I'm just saying.
Portland fans like their team.
We are special a little bit. I think we're special in like a small market type of way, in like a Rip City like. I think it goes deeper and like more genuine than most fan bases go, and I'm wondering just if you have picked up on a similar thing in your time covering the team, and I think you were even kind of talking about it even with them mourning Mike and Mike. Like there is such a rooted interest in the Blazers. It is such a big deal in this city. How you got used to those like expectations and learned to join the community yourself.
Yeah, well, I'll speak first to that expectations part. I don't go into a game trying to meet people's expectations. I go into it just presenting myself, and I know that's going to land for some people and it's not going to land for others, and I'm okay with that as a result. And I didn't used to be that way. As a basketball player, I've spoken about this before in different forums, but when I played at Oregon State, my biggest struggle was not being able to just be myself without worry or concern of how it was impacting other people, mainly the fans who wanted to see the team win. Because I wanted to do so much to be helpful to that situation that if I ever felt like I was letting somebody down or I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing, it would mess with me mentally. And so what I went through as a player really shaped who I became as a broadcaster a ton. I was able to learn a lot from that situation as a player, which I wish I didn't have to go through that to learn that. I wish I could have kind of acquired that another way, but I wasn't in that place. So when I go into games now, it's not an expectation. It's just like, this is who I am, and I'm going to do my best job to give an honest accounting of the Trailblazers, of plays that happen. I want to tell you guys the truth. I remember my first couple years, I had fans get on me a lot and tell me they feel like I'm rooting for the other team. And, there's some people that I would talk to about that. And because anytime somebody comes to me respectfully, you can tell me you hate me as a broadcaster or I had the worst call. But if it's in a honest kind of respectful way of like, man, I can't get down with you, I'll have that conversation all day if that's something you want to have. But if it's, something else where it's just like, how it is, sometimes people are not going to rock with you, and that's fine. But I was always interested in knowing, like, what are you guys going through? What is it? What are you seeing with when I said that about the call? And people would explain to me. They'd say, like, we feel like you're our announcer. Like if the ball, it's a 50-50 call, it's supposed to say it's the Blazers ball. And so I would have these conversations, and I think people were then able to hear from me of like, well, that's not really how I do it. Like, I want the Blazers to win, but also like, it's like my own family. I want my own family to win in everything in life. They know that. My own family also knows I will never tell a lie for you. Like, I will not cover you for something that I would not expect you to cover me for. And like, I don't want that. So I think it's just been a learning process for everybody involved. Blazer fans definitely are, to your point, Connor, super invested in their team. They're knowledgeable. They know everything inside and out. And a lot of that is the proximity that you have with the team. Like, I grew up in Houston, Texas. I couldn't just go to random places sometimes and like see a Houston Rocket maybe in a Whole Foods or in some gym or something. Like, I had to have certain access to go and get that. In Oregon, like, it's just so small. You might see one of the players walking around in Northeast Portland and Bridgeport and who knows.
Picture Jeremy Grant in my neighborhood on Clinton. I'm just like, it's Jeremy Grant. There it is.
Yeah, like stuff like that. That was never a thing for me growing up. So it's one of the things that makes the Portland fan base really cool. The relationship they're able to have, both like with announcers, like I've been explaining so far, but also with the players, with front office people. Like, it's a really cool thing, and it makes sense why Portland fans are as invested as they are.
So you said something about wanting to be yourself on the broadcast that resonated with me, like where I am in my life, honestly, in my work, and trying to challenge myself to, you have to be professional, you have to be discreet, But I really do, and the work that I do, would like to show more of myself in that. And I've been challenging myself to do that. How do you in broadcasting find what some people would call, I guess, like a growth edge, where you're trying to be yourself, you're trying to be authentic, but you also want to try new stuff? Like, you want to grow, you want to, add whatever like rhetorical flourishes to the arsenal. But how do you balance that? Like getting better at your craft and also being, authentic?
I just try to be honest with myself along the way. So if there's something that I maybe try, which I don't necessarily try a lot of stuff while broadcasting, but there might be something that I might say differently than I normally say before, or I might venture into a topic that I don't talk about a whole lot if maybe Kevin goes there, or whatever the case is. And after the fact, I got to be honest with myself and say, okay, that was kind of good. That worked out all right. Or that was stupid. Like, don't do that again. That didn't work. And I don't have an issue doing that. I don't have an issue just knowing, like, okay, that didn't work. Like, that's something in my first couple years, I was trying to learn the Portland fan base. Like, social media was a big way to do it, because you can now communicate fans and players and announcers, and that wasn't something that was available early on. In my wanting that transition to be as smooth as possible for the fans, I would maybe sometimes overextend myself with certain things. I would maybe talk about the game in a certain way that's not really how I would do it all the time. And so there's a period where you kind of got to just be yourself and really live with those results. And along the process, though, you're always honest with yourself and always gauging, like, all right, I might have done a decent job for 5 games, but then I had 2 games where I really sucked those 2 games. Like, I was wrong about that call that I thought was a foul. I was wrong about that player who I had on the scouting report, and I thought that his strengths were X, Y, and Z, and they really were A, B, and C. And I think as long as you do that along the way, like, you can be okay with yourself. And then also just try not to get into a mode of people pleasing, where, it's okay to want people to enjoy what you're doing, but man, everybody's going to have their own opinions and different things. So for me, I just try to do my job. I go home, job's over. I go back to the job the next day. Like, that's kind of the process, not carrying things with me, whether it's good or bad. If I have some good calls or something goes viral or whatever, like, I'm not going to spend 24 hours with everybody. Hey, look what happened. Look what I did.
I was going to say, because your job is so public. Like, no one's taken Brandon's running a meeting and now let's run the clip of him flubbing the thing, right? Like, that doesn't happen with me. Yeah. But people see what you do. Yeah. Have you? Well, yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Well, I think for me in this role, so when I was a kid and I wanted to be an announcer, it's because I'd watch people on TV and I would say, oh, that seems really cool. You could be on TV. Like, if you're on TV, everybody's looking at you. If everybody's looking at you, they probably like you. They think you're cool. As a kid, these are some things. So then it's like, oh, well, that's just me wanting to be on TV. Then it turns into I want to be a basketball analyst. And with that, when I would ask myself that question, it's like, I want people to enjoy the game like I enjoy it, because I got hooked to the game because I felt like I was able to watch the game, whether it's the actual game or people talking about it. And I was able to watch it in a way where it's like, man, I want to do that. I want to be around that. So then I started to understand that human side of it that didn't have anything to do with me and my vanity to an extent, but bringing people along. So as I got older and older and learned more and more about platforms and influence, I could see the people on TV talking about basketball have the opportunity to possibly change people's life to an extent. You got the opportunity to have a family watching the game and say, man, I just love basketball. I just love this. So now they're watching a Trailblazer game and they're watching for the basketball. Maybe during the game, you see a story about Jeremy Grant and the foundation he has, his Our Generation Foundation, or Anthony Simons and his Be a Light, or, what all the stuff Damian Lillard did. Now all of a sudden it becomes oh, wait a minute. Okay, so you could be at that level and still do those good things, and you could be a normal person and you're not above people and you can kind of blend in with people. So all these things became a part of me as an announcer before I joined the Trailblazers, to the point that part of the reason I wanted to join the Trailblazers was because, like I told you guys, from 2007, I was in the Portland community. And being in the Portland community, I was working with kids the entire time. I think Connor, when he and I met at the beginning of this season, when we talked, he said he had come to one of our camps at some point. And so for me, basketball was always just a method to bring people along for something that's greater than just playing a game of basketball. So when I go into the game as an announcer, when I decided in 2016 to be the Trailblazer analyst, it wasn't so that I can just tell everybody like, "Oh, dude, I'm the coolest dude in the room. I'm the youngest analyst in the NBA. Like, nobody has this position." It wasn't. Even though those were some of the facts of the matter, it was never about that. It was, okay, now, how can we turn this into something where everybody's involved, where we're watching Trailblazer games together, we're having fun together, we're learning about stuff in basketball, outside of basketball together, we're affecting each other's lives together. That's what it's all about. So for me, it's been really simple to keep kind of a clear head and clear mission to what I do. And I really appreciate the Blazers management. You guys have probably heard me talk about them. Man, I don't know how many times, but Dwayne Hankins, as a leader, I really don't believe there's a better president of a sports organization in professional sports. And I can go down the list of people within our management who help set up that type of identity and philosophy for our organization that makes it really exciting for me to be a part of.
Well, one thing that you and Kevin add that's not just basketball, I think, is making the broadcast, add humor to it and some lightheartedness to it. And we would be very sad if we did not get to this next topic. But before this is over, we really wanted to talk to you about the Grinch. And so for those who aren't familiar, although it was a viral moment, so I think many people should be familiar with this. Lamar went on a mid-game Grinch rant on December 26th when the Blazers were playing the Utah Jazz, talking about how the Grinch is the most misunderstood, or top 5 most misunderstood humans, or I don't know if the Grinch is a human, but misunderstood people in literature, in the world. And just, can you talk about what led to that rant? Because I found it so fun and entertaining. I was sharing it. I got to do the little write up for it at Blazers Edge, that was a fun hour of work that I could call work, was listening and transcribing your Grinch rant.
Okay, I can break it all down for you and let you know how this happened. And so a lot of people heard the rant, but they don't all know why I said it when I said it. So you guys are getting the exclusive on the Grinch rant. All right, yes. So what I have shared is The Grinch is my wife's favorite movie. For years, she watches this movie every Christmas, multiple times. Okay, so not once, not twice, not 3. I do the LeBron, not 4.
Yeah, right.
And just to be clear, we're talking about the 2000 Jim Carrey live action Grinch, right?
Favorite movie, the Jim Carrey Grinch. So the last couple years, I really started to lock in on it. Because a lot of times it'll be playing, like, how something plays so much, you just kind of get to a point where you don't even hear it. It's just on in the background.
White noise.
And she uses it for that a lot of times, where she'll be, decorating a tree or whatever, and she just has a Grinch on in the background. So there was a couple years ago, I was locking in on it, different than I had before. And I just started paying attention. I'm like, wait a minute, why are they making fun of him in the school? He didn't do anything. So I would ask her, did he go to the school the day before and do something that I didn't see? Did he talk about somebody's mom or who? I guess you would say, did somebody's who? Did he do something? He was like, no, he didn't do nothing, right? So I keep locking in, and I'm like, wait a minute. So they invited him to the holiday cheermeister, and then they clowned him again. Okay, so why did they do that? So then I started asking these questions, and all of her answers were like mind blown to me, because my whole life growing up, I just thought this dude was the worst person ever, and he was the one that only terrorized people. Like, nobody ever said anything about them terrorizing him. So over the last couple of years, I've been watching the movie. I've had a really good understanding of the movie, and so it's at the top of my head. this past Christmas, we were watching the movie. It's so crazy. It's like 2 days before the rant happened, we were watching the movie at home. And I was like, this is just so upsetting. Because now I know. So now, like, I'm with her, we sharing inside secrets. And I said, this is just so upsetting because people keep on clowning this dude and, like, they hate, and, like, nobody ever tells this side of the story. And I know that there was an original book, there was an original Grinch and all that. But my thing is this. You can go back in history and you can get a lot of sides told of certain events or certain people or certain things. And I was like, how come there's not a strong representation for this side of them? Like, the only strong representation is for the negative side of, how come we ain't hearing both things with that same energy like we hear a lot of things kind of approach? Okay, and this is what did it. This is what put me over the top. Christmas Day, I'm watching the NBA games. You know how they do the ABC, the ESPN, they're doing all the games. And at each game, somebody's dressed up as a Grinch. And then the announcers will go and talk about it, and they're just killing the Grinch. And I'm sitting there, I'm watching the game. So my wife, Christmas Day, and I said, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Like, nobody says anything positive for the Grinch. Okay. So the game against Utah was the next day. So we get to the arena, and I have no plans of talking about the Grinch. I'm serious. I was not going to get into it because I always thought, like, all right, this is more podcast material. Maybe it's not something for a game. So,
right.
Like, I walked into the game expecting, like, even when I watched the ABC and ESPN games, I wasn't expecting anybody to go off on a rant. I was just expecting maybe just one or two lines of, like, hey, the Grinch had a reason for some of his animosity. So you guys might remember this. Brooke Olzendam did a story on DeAndre Ayton. It was posted apparently on the Blazers Instagram and Twitter a day or so before, but she did a story the day of the game of DeAndre Ayton dressed up as a Grinch. So he's dressed up as a Grinch. He's decorating his tree, doing stuff. And right when she tosses back at the end of the story, if you go back and listen, you'll hear it. She tosses back at the end of her story. And I think we showed a Grinch, somebody dressed as a Grinch in the stands, but Brooke said something like, and there goes the Grinch. Yeah. Like a bit.
Real judgmental.
So it was directed at Brooke.
Yeah, no, it wasn't directed at Brooke. It wasn't directed at Brooke because all Brooke was doing, she was speaking for everybody else.
Yeah.
She was speaking for what has been the long time narrative. Right. But as soon as she said that, it clicked. And I just started talking. And I didn't know where we were going to go with it, but I had to say what I had to say. I felt compelled at that point when I heard her feeling toward it, in addition to the story, in addition to the Christmas Day games, in addition to everything. It's just, okay, we got to talk about this. And that's how it all happened.
I'm so happy to hear your retelling of this because I really thought you must have had like at least some notes jotted down, like at least like some prep to go on that rant. While simultaneously, and the comments on YouTube love this, you're simultaneously still calling the game while going into your Grinch point.
Yeah, so, the game was happening. The game wasn't going to slow down for nobody, but the Grinch's story needed to be told. There needed to be another option, another narrative that can at least be weighed. And even if you're somebody, because Tom Haberstroh came back and said something about, the original story of the Grinch. But Tom and I, we caught up about this in Charlotte because that's where he lives. And when the Blazers went to Charlotte, that was the first time he and I saw each other in person since that whole Grinch thing. And he said, you know what? I didn't even think about the concept of everybody only attaching to one side of the Grinch. And he's like, it wasn't until you brought up that other side that I realized, like, yeah, nobody ever believes that side of him, but they gladly believe this side of him. And I was like, my work here is done then.
That's amazing.
That was the reason, and I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, well, for somebody who loves the Blazers and loves the Grinch, I never imagined them blending together in like one moment. So I do appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, good. I'm glad that it worked out for you and everybody else. But kind of getting back to what Brandon was talking about earlier, like just those kind of things. I know as a broadcaster, I can venture into if I want to. And a lot of that is because, again, our leadership we have, they support those types of things. They trust our decisions with things like that. Yeah. And that's another one of those kind of things that some people liked it. Some people probably were like, quit talking about the Grinch and tell us every single thing going on with the game.
I wouldn't trust anybody who didn't want to hear that. I wouldn't trust that person. And by the way, not to end this, and by the way, we super appreciate your time and thank you. Not to end this on too earnest of a note, but the Grinch thing does make me think. It's come up a lot for me lately in my life. To stay imaginative about why things are happening. And that honestly is really, really important. Like something happens, have a snap reaction to it. What are all the different possibilities of why that thing may be happening? And it does matter. Lamar, we're going to let you go on that. We appreciate you. I would do that thing where like, where can people find your work? People know where to find you. So I don't think we need to do any of that. But thank you. And yeah, have fun in New York. I may or may not see you at Madison Square Garden. So if security lets me, I'll come say hi because I'll actually be at that game.
Really, will be?
Yeah, I'll be there. Yeah.
Are you at home right now?
Yeah. So we're actually living on the East Coast now. We're living in Connecticut. And I had the chance to go see the Blazers at MSG. So it's like, I have to do it. So, yeah, if I can find you, I'll come say what up.
Please do. And if they won't let you close, just yell. And if I'll come to you, say what's up, man.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Hey, and real quick on the way out, I wanted to say to you guys, because this has been a big week in sports with journalists kind of in the news, going back and forth with pro players and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I was really looking forward to joining you guys because one thing I've really appreciated, Brandon, and all the time I've known you, and then Conor getting to know you, is the humility you guys attack a lot of things with. And it's really easy in our world, in the sports world, because of the proximity we have to the athletes and to these big stages. It's really easy to kind of just start feeling yourself a little bit and, becoming a person that either you're the know-it-all or you're the person you think you're above a few people, or you're cooler than people just because you got a certain job. And you guys have never given that vibe at all. And I wish you guys tons of success in this industry, because we need more voices like yours who, you use your microphones for uplifting purposes. Doesn't mean that you can be critical at times and vent at times and do all of that. But your personalities, your character that you guys kind of attack everything with, it's noteworthy, and it's something that I see, and it's the reason why I was looking forward to joining you guys today. So I'm wishing you tremendous success, and if I can ever be helpful to you guys moving forward, or there's something that I can do or whatever it is, just know I'm a fan of you guys, and I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. That's like, you gave me the confidence boost of the weekend, so thank you, Lamar.
For sure. Thank you guys, man.
Appreciate you. Thank you again to Lamar Hurd, Oregon State legend, by the way. Didn't talk enough about that. Conor, we had recorded an episode recently, which we would now also like to share with people. What about a 2-for-1? Should we charge double for this, or what do you think?
Double bonus. Hit my Venmo. It's my name.
You're in the double bonus. You're getting 2 shots. Like, no problem. It's not the 1-and-1, getting 2 shots.
We made the first free throw. We're getting the second free throw.
Exactly. I think it makes sense. I thank you again to Lamar Hurd. And here is I don't even know how to say this, Conor. It's just the other half of the episode. But that's why you're going to get 2 intros. Please enjoy. Appreciate you. Yo, what is up? You have found We Like the Blazers. I am Brandon Goldner. Over my shoulder is the Scoot Henderson X Cheetos bag that my Scoot Henderson Cheetos shoes came in. And through the screen is the one, the only, the effervescent, I probably used that descriptor before, but whatever. It is Conor Bergen. Conor, what's up? Actually, sorry, before I kick it to you, I'm sorry. Yo, what is up? It is Brandon Mullen. I have to get used to my own name. Anyway, hi. Hi, Conor.
Hey, good to be back on the pod. It's been a little bit of a time off for us. I didn't even notice the name mishap, so I also need to get used to your new name.
It's hard, especially when it's like, I mean, first of all, my name is ingrained, but second of all, like that little intro thing has been the same for a long time for me, like some version of that. Yeah, my hair is just, oh man, I hate it. The audio listeners, Brandon's hair is doing weird stuff. And then I tried to put a little hairspray in it, like, okay, get a zhuzh, get some volume, for the camera. And it's just it's not working out, but that's okay. How are you? How's your hair? Your hair looks pretty good.
My hair's looking fine.
It looks good. Yeah.
But thank you. No need for gel today. It's just kind of a little natural stick to it. But other than
just
that,
the sweat and the humidity of the day.
Just the sweat from the grind of the job.
Question: aren't y'all in the Pacific Northwest under like a thunderstorm warning situation?
We are, but we're not there yet. This is the calm before the storm, quite literally, because I'm looking out my window right now and it's still like sunny and nice. But I think it is supposed to, like, we're on like whatever, like watch 2, tornado watch or something like that, around like 5:30. Yeah, watch 2, very official tornado scale. But I actually, I'm trying to play some basketball later, so I'm hoping that, and I'm going to risk it too. So if God forbid if something happens, my stupidity of driving into the storm will be formatted or captured in this podcast forever.
Just as long as you're not playing basketball on a golf course and there are no trees around, something will be taller than you, probably.
We'll be good. 24 hours. So
hopefully. Fitness. Although, how cool would it be is like you like drain a 3 and then lightning just explodes the hoop. That's game.
Mm-hmm.
First to 11 or whoever explodes the hoop.
Yeah, first to lightning strikes. I haven't gotten these Scoot Flaming Hot Cheeto shoes, but your review of the shoes really did kind of tempt me a little bit to at least look into them. And I didn't know, I was reading the comments on that piece you wrote, that was not a first-time shoe review for you. I didn't realize that you were kind of Blazers Edge's like in-house shoe aficionado.
Once every 7 years. Yeah, I reviewed what at the time were called the D. Lillard 2s. Real hoops heads know that the D. Lillard 1 and D. Lillard 2 came out, and then they went to the Dame 3, Dame 4, Dame 5. So I reviewed the D. Lillard 2s back in 2000, I want to say maybe 16, something in there. And then now bringing it back for the Flamin' Hot Cheetos. Yeah, the Cheeto shoes were good. They were $55, first of all, and then second of all, yeah, they played really well on court. I was very surprised. Like, the fact that you could out of the box run full court in a brand new shoe, I was just I brought both my regular shoes and those ones expecting to switch. And I was like, I don't need to switch. So I was like, very impressive. Puma, please advertise on the podcast.
Send us some Flaming Hot Cheetos.
I know.
At the very least. I just bought a new pair. I bought the new Sabrinas. I jumped on the bandwagon. Nice. I feel like I just got swooped up in that kind of, because those are really gaining popularity right now the last few years. And they're like it's like a floral pattern to it, kind of like pinkish. They're kind of cool. Like, yeah. I initially didn't want to get the pink shoes, not because of like some masculinity thing, but maybe deep within me there was something rooted in that. But I didn't want to get the pink shoes. They were the only pair there. I really just wanted to buy shoes, so I did it anyway. They replaced my Damian Lillard like 5s or whatever I had somewhere down the line. So very happy with those shoes. And I also noticed Matisse Thybulle, if you've paid attention to his shoe game since he's returned, he has been playing in the new Sabrina 2s as well. So we have perhaps similar styles, me and him, on the court because of the shoes.
Matisse Thybulle, that's the name we should be talking about, because we have not recorded since Monsieur Thybulle returned to the Blazers lineup. I think it's been that long. He has been doing really well. Let's set the table. We're going real cash today, Connor. Just a cash episode. The Blazers
a catch up between old friends, essentially.
Exactly. Yeah. Grab your slippers, grab your pipe. Your dog will bring you your evening post. I guess it'd be weird for two people in the same room to both be reading the paper, smoking on a pipe. So I'm not sure where this imagery from me is going.
No, that's like there's like a frog and toad photo of that. That's
oh, well, frog and toad. I mean, come on. It's like relationship goals, friendship goals, relationship goals. The Blazers goals. Currently, as of today, the year of our sweet Lord, March 26, 2025, the Blazers find themselves at 32-41. They find themselves 3.5 games back of 10th place. The Phoenix Suns, who are suddenly the hottest team on the planet, they've won 4 games in a row, and looking ever more likely that the Blazers will indeed be in the lottery. All of our dreams about a play-in seemingly dashed on what is now, what do we have, 9 more games to go in the season, if my math is correct. They played 73 games. There's 82 games of the season. I can do math. Connor, let's start here. I have found the will they, won't they play-in lottery to be a real rabbit season, duck season situation where Joe Cronin and Chauncey Billups are playing the role of Bugs and Daffy. And I don't know who got the better of who, but it was like, they're in the play-in, they're in the lottery, they're in the play-in, they're in the lottery, they're in the lottery, they're in the play-in, they're in the lottery. And I don't know if this was like Joe Cronin's trick and it worked. But what do you make about this? The Blazers, were close and reasonably had had a chance to make the plan. Now it looks very likely they're going to be in the lottery. Not the greatest lottery pick, but how are you feeling? What's going through your head? Just Blazers standing in general.
Yeah, I think the dream of the lottery was exciting for the last few years where the spring has been the most boring basketball of all time. It provided a little more entertainment. But I think, and there was one game where it really was like, I think it's going to happen because I think it was after they beat Denver on Friday.
You mean, dream of the plan. Sorry, you said
dream of the plan.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Apologies. Dream of the plan. For one day, play-in fever was very real. And it was after the Memphis game. And everybody was talking about it because it was looking like Dallas was falling off a cliff and Phoenix was not, they're Phoenix and dysfunctional. And then they beat Denver that Friday and it was like, okay, but that day, both Phoenix and Dallas won, so they didn't gain any spot in the standings after that win over Denver. And since then, it has all kind of just faltered away. I think what I make of it is this is exactly what the organization or Joe Cronin in this. I like your analogy of rabbit season, duck season. I think this is what they ultimately.
Only the real ones will get that reference.
I think this is what they expected to happen. I think they were kind of like, we'll let this sort itself out. Hopefully they don't make it in. It's a very slim chance that they make it in. I do think, though, that they were going to let it happen if it did because they didn't pull people out. They didn't shut down Deni. So, I think it was a genuine few weeks of basketball, and ultimately the outcome was probably for the best of everyone involved.
Yeah, the dream of the play-in was alive, I think, even for more than one game. You do the math of how many games are left and how well are they playing. I would say there's the fact. Okay, here's my argument. The fact that there was a game where it was possible means it was possible for all of the time before.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So, anywho, where they now find themselves, though, Connor, and I mostly agree with everything you said, per usual, no notes. The Blazers find themselves, we're talking lottery, 10th best lottery odds. They are tied technically with San Antonio, who is in 9th. Sorry, not technically tied, effectively tied. The Blazers' win percentage is 1/100th of a point better, and it's just a matter of they haven't played the same number of games. But so they're tied to San Antonio. They're half game behind the Miami Heat for 8th best odds. The Heat have now won 2 in a row. They've had a very, very dreadful last couple of weeks / month / haha, should have traded for Dame. Maybe you should have given up more than your pocket lint, Mr. Riley. And the Blazers have no chance of getting to 7th because Toronto is up there a full 6.5 games ahead. Now, on the other side of that, the Blazers are only a half game ahead of the Chicago Bulls, who are in 11th best lottery odds, but they're pretty well clear of Dallas, who are 3 games below that in the lottery odds. So again, like games ahead, behind, it's all kind of weird. I'm situating ourselves to better lottery odds. And here's where I want to make a point, and I want your opinion. The Blazers currently have a 13.9% chance of getting into the top 4. If they're able to make up that half game and get better odds than both the Spurs and the Heat, that would put the Blazers with 8th best odds, which would change their odds at a top 4 pick from 13.9 to 26.3. That's a big change. That is a big change. That is doubling your odds to get a top 4 pick. And this is very hypocritical of me because earlier in the season, I'm like, who cares? There's only like one. As we get,
we're fluid. Itchy. Opinions are fluid. We needed more data.
Opinions are like ferric acid. Anyway, so like the Blazers now probably don't have a chance at the play-in. Is it time to really, really pull the plug? I don't even know what that looks like, by the way. So many of the young players are playing quite well, but like, just what do you feel? What are you feeling?
First of all, if they were really going to pull the plug, they would have to pull Deni and Tumani. I think is like that is the key to losing. Yeah. Just take those 2 out, and I think the rest will take care of itself. Do they have the cojones to do that? I'm not sure, especially with the league cracking down on everything. I'm getting so it's like I'm starting to get so worn out by the lottery, the tanking versus
we haven't talked in weeks though. Come on.
No, yeah, we haven't talked in weeks, but it's all the message boards, and it's the right conversation to be having. Like I understand why we're doing it, but
I'll tell you what, I'm interrupting you, but I can say we can table this conversone because you're right.
Because it needs to be had. Let me make it very clear. I am of the mind that yes, like once again, hey, pat yourself on the back. You guys gave it. You gave it the good college try. There was some moments there where it looked like maybe you were going to get into the play-in. You played some meaningful games in March. You got some good development minutes. You saw growth last, further into the season, because sometimes those late stretches in the other years, it's like, oh, well, all these players are getting so many developmental minutes, but it's like, okay, well, these are games that like nobody seems to even be trying, and there were some quality basketball games that they were playing in the last month, but now it's effectively dead. And for the best interest of the franchise, getting that 8th best lottery odds kind of feels like you can have your cake and eat it too, where like we didn't totally give up on the season. We didn't really tank, but we're still going to have a shot at not only progressing this year, but having a shot at maybe getting a stroke of luck in the lottery, because the team needs more high-end talent. They need another shot, like another crack at it. So, yeah, like that's just. I'm already focusing for next season in a sense. Are you?
Yeah, I want to talk about Matisse Thybulle, by the way, who has just been a lot of fun, and has just an absolutely stunning small sample size. No, I'm not going to talk about his defense. An offensive rating of 151, which if you know offensive rating and defensive rating, that is cartoonish. Like most, like the best players have an offensive rating, I think in the 120s maybe. And so a 151 offensive rating for Monsieur Thybulle. So this year it's, as it's maybe been the entire time, has really been individuals, and what you're seeing from them, especially the young players. maybe there's a conversation for another day about if Chauncey Billups, has he coached his way into extension talk territory? I don't think I'm not mentally prepared for this conversation personally, but
I'll add one small tidbit on that. I said them not making the play-in was good for everybody involved. I think there was one person that maybe it was not good for, and that was Chauncey. And I think if they had got in there, like, I think those talks about an extension become way more real. Now I think things are kind of coming back to where maybe people thought the season would ultimately end up. I'm not mentally prepared for this conversation, but just to tee it up for a different time. I actually do think it depends. Evaluating his career as a coach really does depend heavily on how much you're weighting recent samples. And there's a school of thought that says, listen, he had X number of games and he's showed you who he is, and you can add these games to the sample and it doesn't change much. Or you could be like, no. Au contraire, I don't know why I'm doing these French phrases. It's coming out of nowhere. You could be like, yeah, you should weight the more recent games more, and this team looks like it has a defensive identity, and he has allowed players, for example, like Deni Avdija, to look like one of the, at times, top 10 power forwards in the league, if that's what you want to classify him as. I was listening to the Dunked On podcast with Nate Dunk and Danny LaRue. I think they slotted him somewhere in the mid-teens, but we're like, he's really come on lately, and thanks for noticing, national guys. But back to your original question, am I looking forward to next year? Yes. Like, I think the Blazers should do what they can to get as good of a lottery position as they can. They've 70 plus games of actually trying. Good job. And by the way, to your point, and maybe you know more than me, the league's anti-resting rules, my understanding is that it only applies to quote unquote star players who have made an all-star or all-NBA in the past 3 years, of which the Blazers have none. None of those types of players exist on this team. So, like, I'm not sure the Blazers could run afoul of that rule. The silver lining of not having a star, you can tank really
Go
easily.
ahead and tank. I mean, like Utah has Lauri Markkanen. They got dinged or at least investigated. I can't remember. The Brooklyn Nets had who did they have on their team? Anywho, so. Let's talk about, you want to talk more about the Blazers tank, not tank, or are we off it? It's been played.
I want to make one kind of overarching point about the season that kind of deals with this a little bit before we move on. But I think it's because I've been starting to just kind of reflect on the season a little bit already. And part of it's because there's only 10 games left or 9 games left. The other part is they just finished up a 7-game home trip. And it was kind of the last big one of the year. So there's really, like, for my first year on the beat, it's kind of starting to feel like, like the end of the school year a little bit. And I just think this year was so confusing and it made it very hard for people to kind of understand what was going on, because it was just, feels like it could be split in two of, like, the beginning was so bad. And it was so bad, but then
it was really bad.
It was really bad. Like some of those blowout games and just the vibes of the team felt like people just seemed upset. But the solace to all that was like, well, at least they're going to get a shot at Cooper Flagg then. And then by the time they started playing better, people had already got into the mindset of, we need, the big prize is a high-end lottery pick. So when they started doing better, it made it harder for people to, like, enjoy that or really kind of understand what to make of it. But I think after all of that, I'm kind of, the more I look back on it, I think this season, if they end up around 8th or 9th, like, for the talent on this roster, I think that's probably, like, where maybe a slight increase of improvement from where you thought they would be. But, like, I think ultimately a lot of things happened this year that you wanted to see happen. And it kind of ended up not dramatically better or not dramatically like worse from I think where the possibilities were at the beginning of the year. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, and I don't agree, and here's why. The Blazers, in my view, were hoping that a future first option would appear from the mist. Has that happened?
No.
And that is, I think, the problem. Now, you could say, if you squint and you look really far into the mist, that fella looks a little like Deni Avdija, doesn't he? But I don't know if you can, right? Like, I mean, kind of, maybe. But Shaedon Sharpe certainly hasn't taken that step. And Scoot Henderson, I am bummed because he was looking better.
You think it's...
Well, go ahead.
Yesterday didn't give you more hope? Because it's...
I just seen him play
well yesterday. No, you've been playing poorly, but then yesterday he flipped it around a little bit.
Well, that's not... he
wanted it to keep really just escalating.
His season started pretty poorly. It got worse. And then there was a moment where we're like, okay, there we go. All right, just keep that locked in. Keep it locked in. And he didn't. So that's not great, right? Like the consistency doesn't seem to be there. Has he gotten better? Yes. Like eye test says he's gotten better. Let's check the stats. Stats say he's gotten a little better. But like, it's not looking great for even 2 months ago or a month and a half ago. I was like, okay, keep it up. Cool. Like roll into the end of the season with some consistency and that hasn't happened. I
think I'm just grading it on such a curve with him that I am just looking at this as such a win for him because the start of the season was so bad.
42% shooting from the field. That's a win for you. 2.7 turnovers a game.
The win I see is that I was
2 to 1 assist to turnover ratio. That's a win for Connor.
The win is this. Hear me out. The win is that neither, and maybe this isn't a win in some people's eyes, but neither Shaedon Sharpe or Scoot Henderson are a bust in like the truest sense of the word. And entering the season for Scoot, I thought that was a very real possibility that it could end up that way. You still think there's bust potential? I think like both of them are going to be. I think
Shaedon Sharpe is firmly outside of bust potential at this point.
Mm-hmm. I think,
but Scoot Henderson is super duper not. Like Shaedon Sharpe is like very much. I think has proven he's going to have a long NBA career as doing something. I don't think Scoot Henderson has done that. So that's a problem. Like, especially if you're picked third. That's the other thing is that Shaedon Sharpe, the bust thing is kind of related to where you were picked. Shaedon Sharpe was picked 7th, question mark. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah.
I guess just what I've seen from
nervous
Scoot.
Chuckling.
Did you watch the 30-point game against New York was like 2 weeks ago?
Cool. That one game was awesome. I love it.
Hey man, I'm gonna hold on to that game.
For a while. It's difficult to get a negative game score. I know I'm just kind of lobbing stuff out there. You can tell I'm deep into my basketball reference era. It's almost impossible to get a negative game score. My understanding is that you're trying to quantify your overall impact on a game using the box score stats, combination of the shots that you made and your assists and your rebounds, your turnovers. And this game against Memphis, oh dear, 5 assists is pretty good, I guess. Like that's not bad. 3 turnovers. 2 for 10 from the field, 3 rebounds with a negative 0.2.
I looked at the box score last night. Don't remind me. No, it's true.
If we're gonna cherry pick one game, and we could go game for game, and I think unfortunately the not good is gonna outweigh the good.
Oh yeah, the tallies would be lopsided. The bad games are becoming less or more infrequent than they were because it felt like there was like weeks of stretches where it would
So
like,
we're having a philosophical conversation about player development, and I think fundamentally what I'm saying is that development doesn't mean you're awesome all the time, but I think it really means that your floor, that the worst that you ever play comes up. I think that to me is development, and you're arguing that is happening.
I think so.
That's fine. I don't think that's happening nearly enough. It's the inconsistency and the fact that you could get these absolutely like damaging games from his worst games should be like he's invisible. His worst game should not be, oh dear, he's damaging our team on the court. That's all I'm saying.
Like an elephant is like rampaging through the kitchen type, like Scoot. What are you? Yeah, and I think it's the curve that I'm grading on because did you watch the highlights of his Seattle preseason opener?
No.
Oh my God, it was like one of the worst basketball games I've ever seen somebody play. Not to be hyperbolic, but it was like, and it was like you're coming after the summer, like,
yeah, hey, when they didn't play him during summer league, and so you're going,
finish the season pretty strong. What's gonna, maybe he's gonna come in with like some new juice, and it was just like the biggest stinker.
Oh, all right. So we're talking about Scoot Henderson, and there's 9 games left of the season. Like, what then? 9 games left this season. Let's just say it ends the way we've seen it and it's inconsistent, whatever. Like, what do you want to see? What do you expect to see? What do you hope to see from him? And maybe one way to ask this question is there one specific skill that if you saw him improve, you'd be like, okay, cool. Like it, getting better.
Yeah, I think the obvious answer is at the rim finishing. But like for like a more like less specific stat, just like court feel, and because what I've noticed is he's kind of cut down on the head scratching turnovers that he had a lot over his first season and a half. So just to continue to move in that direction of just like he's having his total control on the game and the tempo.
Okay, that's fair. And like, to be fair to him, as I'm now kind of crawling into the stats, like his finishing at the rim has gotten quite a bit better than last year. Like we're looking at between 0 to 3 feet. Should be pretty easy to score from 0 to 3 feet. Last year it's like at 50%. And this year it's at 59%. That's pretty cool. From 3 to 10 feet. Last year, it was 31%. It's really bad. This year, it's 34%, still pretty bad. And then 10 to 16 feet is 45% last year, 50% this year. So it's better, right? Better is better. We like better. Better is good. Want to see him get there more often. Want to see him start drawing fouls, all that stuff. And yes, court feel, is that like related to mouth feel? Is that like I'm drinking a wine and I get the court feel? Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, it's just, I know that you're like less. Go ahead, Deb.
Oh, I like this disagreement. This is good. This is because I need to be. I need to be checked. I come to this podcast to be checked.
Okay, this is going to be really tough. But over this shoulder, Scoot Henderson rookie card. Over this shoulder, Scoot Henderson rookie card. So like. One of them has his autograph. So like
flaming hot Cheeto shoe bag.
Flaming hot. I bought his shoes for God's sake. I'm a believer. It's been rough. You know who hasn't been rough, Connor? Matisse Thybulle. What a guy. I know we talked about him a little bit. I just wanted to plug it, not really an article, but I was digging around in the stats and I was like, oh, this is a fun sample size. And when his first 2 games back, he was leading the NBA in defensive box plus minus. It's an attempt that tries to estimate the number of defensive points that a player contributed above a league average player. So it's a number that says kind of how much impact you're having on defense. That was really fun. You know what's even more fun, Connor? I crack it open now, not just 2 games in. Do you know who's Who's in second place of defensive box plus minus? That's Matisse Thybulle. Jamari Bouye, Blazers legend, is at the top spot with his 1 game and 5 minutes played. Jamari, we miss you. But the other thing that's maybe more mind-blowing is that for all players who've played more than a single game, which I think is a fair filter, Matisse Thybulle is second in the NBA in box plus minus overall, only trailing Nikola Jokic. Pretty cool. Still a small sample size, right? But like, my point is, and my question for you, I small sample, sure. Statement. Please respond to the statement. What an interesting player to have on your team, Connor.
I love it. Please,
yeah.
I don't want Matisse to. Out of all the vets, Matisse is the one I'm like, can we keep him for another year at least? From an enjoyment to watch standpoint, he fits with the other wing defenders so well. Like, it's so cool the last few games to have Toumani Camara and Deni Avdija as your starting forwards, who are both stout, good defenders, and then they check out and it's like, oh, stout. I love that word. I use it maybe too much. And then you bring in the second unit, and now these teams have to deal with Matisse Thybulle, who is quite literally the defensive wizard, as many people like to call him. So I hope that the relationship between Matisse and the Blazers at least goes another year, because I think he's a good player to have for what this team is doing, and he's still only like 27 or something like that. So it's not like he's like some 35-year-old vet or something.
And it's interesting. I mean, this is a funny thing to talk about. So the Blazers signed him to that contract last year. It was a 3-year contract with a player option on the last year, which is next year. So he has a player option next year for about $11.5 million. Sounds like a lot in the NBA landscape, where the cap is going up and now expected to go up even more, as you know, we shared on site. 10% increase in the salary cap next season. Oh my. That $11.5 million is peanuts. Now, the thing that I find funny about this, and maybe it's not so funny, he was out, right? Matisse Thybulle was out. He had an injury. He was ramping up to come back, and then he suffered an injury, ramping up to come back from the injury, and then he was out. At that point, I was like, well, he's done for the year, unfortunately. Oh, no. He comes back. He comes back and now has the second highest box plus minus in the NBA for any player who's played more than one game. He comes back and now he has the second highest defensive box plus minus, right behind Jamari Bouye. He comes back and suddenly looks like a flawless integration into this new defensive-minded Blazers team. And I'm thinking to myself, Connor, what if he declines the option? What if he goes out to the open market in this cap environment where people are throwing money around like it's the Monopoly man? And I'm scared. So if he doesn't pick up this option, I mean, this is a conversation that Matisse Thybulle has to have with his agent, and whether the total of 15 games he will have played this year, if he plays every other game from now on, whether that's enough to prove that he's worth more than that, I don't know, but it's certainly a possibility.
That's an interesting question. Yeah, because I was more thinking, if he picks up that option, do you trade him? Because I think the assumption was always this year that they would probably trade Matisse for some seconds. And go on.
Well, no, I just to me, it's such a small contract that to trade it, I don't think you could possibly get good value for him, really, because it's such a teeny tiny contract.
So I have become of the mind, if he keeps that team option, let's bring him back. But if he declines it and then you get in a bidding war with somebody, then you start to look at it is the luxury of having Matisse Thybulle something you want to invest in past that price tag?
And even it's the NBA marketplace is so funny, right? Because the NBA marketplace is very different in free agency than it is when you're making trades. And what I mean by that is, like, for teams that have cap space, which there aren't really that many, and free agency isn't what it used to be. Like back in my day, free agency was a big deal, and now it's like stars get their contracts and then they force their way out and get a trade, like whatever. Where teams would be maybe willing to quote unquote overpay for Matisse Thybulle. Okay, he's going to be healthy. He has this impact. His 3-point shooting has gotten better. Small sample size, but hey, it's what we're looking at. But then when it comes to trading, it's like, I don't really want to give up anything for that. So I wonder if the Blazers, if he does decline the contract and he does want to get more money, to your point about him being tradable on his current contract, I don't know how tradable he'd be on his next contract, whatever that might be. And someone in his, late to mid 20s, maybe. Again, him and his agent are going to have a conversation. Is it this year or next year that we can get, hopefully like a longer term contract and really fill the coffers?
Set you up for life contract, or like set you up for retirement type of contract. Right, because
this is interesting. Matisse Thybulle has only, in quotes, made, guess how much money he's made in his career?
Is this something like... Yeah, he's made like $22 million the last 2 years. Is this something like $30 million?
$23 million. And the reason why that is like, it's a lot of money to me, but it's not a lot of money to most people. Players like, and Anthony Simons is a different player, a better player. By the time Anthony Simons' contract is over, he will have made right around $100 million. That's a lot different. And so for someone like Matisse Thybulle, who maybe has one more long contract in him, is it this year, is it next year? I don't know. And he's a cool player. I hope he opts in. I hope he stays on the team. And also I like him as a person. I like that he's an intellectual. He likes reading books.
I'm glad you
pretend to read books.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, just selfishly, he is so much fun to cover and interview, and I was pretty bummed, when I got the job this year. He was probably the player I was most excited to interview on a regular basis, because I had seen in the previous year the thoughtful answers he gave, and like you said, kind of the intellectualness to like his answers. And then we didn't get to talk to him for like 6 months. We had the interview at media day, and then we didn't talk to him until like the day before he came back in early March. So I would enjoy another season of reps of interviews with Matisse. And like even after that first good game, we talked to him in the locker room, and he talked about like going rogue. It was honestly like the most interesting interview in a few months, it felt like, because he over the course of the week of him coming back, he talked about like the mental kind of toll of being a basketball player who can't play basketball, and he put it in a very interesting way. And then he talked about how he would fit in and how weird it is to come back at like game 67 of a 82-game season.
That's got to be strange.
Yeah, he talked about that kind of like conundrum. He walked us through how that's difficult. And then after he had that great game, he talked about how like he wants to be solid, when you come back after that far off. And he had the quote of like, I ended up going rogue on like some of my steals, and so like thank God it worked. And I said, well, isn't going rogue a part of your brand? And he said, well yes, but like when you miss that many games, you just want to be solid. And he said, I guess I couldn't help myself. And I just was like, I love it. Some of these interviews can be like a little routine, and so far in the two or three interviews we've done with him, they have not been routine. I've found them entertaining to be a part of.
I mean, it sounds like you should chat with him for a little, just chat at some point. Like, that's really cool. He's a cool guy. And it's interesting to hear from your perspective as a reporter that you can, and obviously obviously you can, but you can feel the difference between what feels routine and what feels like maybe someone is more comfortable or more willing to share in a different way. And that's really neat. And I frankly don't think we have enough of that in the world, Connor. Maybe even in this space, I can challenge myself to be 10% more vulnerable. Tell you all about my dark secrets.
I'll match you, partner.
Let's go. Before we leave today, before we get into our deepest and most pressing anxieties, I do need to get, I'm just kidding. I do need to, where am I? Sorry. I need to give a shout out to two other players. I mean, we could give a shout out to plenty of them, but Toumani Camara, his offense in the last 6 games has been pretty incredible, shooting over 50% from the field, shooting over right around 44% from deep. And he's averaging 16.3 points a game to go with his 5 boards, 3 assists, a steal and a half, nearly a block. For Toumani Camara, you don't think of as an offensive powerhouse. Boy, is that encouraging to see. But really, like, the gold star of, like, thank you for being on our team has got to go to Deni Avdija. How much fun is it to watch this guy play in his last 8 games? Legitimate star level stats, and also, like, I would say star level impact for a lot of these games, but
for sure.
24, 11, and 5 with a steal, shooting over 50% from 3 and from the field in those 8 games. But more than that, the way that Deni Avdija plays, it's like, it's been a minute since, and maybe you could say with Shaedon Sharpe's dunks, but it's not quite the same because you don't know when it's going to happen. But it's been a minute since there's been a Blazers player where it's like he gets the ball and I'm very interested in what he does with it. Because for Deni, it's like, he's probably just going to go that way. And like, he's probably going to like run through people. And like, that's pretty cool.
No, yeah, it's so distinct. It's such a physical, like blue collar style that people can get behind too.
Blue collar. We should get someone with some artistic talent to create a Deni Avdija blue collar and just wear just the collar, or connect it to the jersey. That'd be great. A little blue collar on this black and red. Let's go. Yeah. It's been a while since the Blazers have had a team that's been willing to run so frequently, and certainly been a long while. I can't remember. Maybe you can. Since they've had a player who is like so willing to just take it and just go, and that's what's happening.
Yeah, Josh Hart was like similar, but
it wasn't here for super long. But
wasn't here for super long, and
Denny's going to be a Blazer lifer, right, Connor?
I think he'll be here definitely longer than Josh Hart. I think Toumani and Deni, and this is like goes without saying almost, but like they are the two undisputed victories of the season. Like,
I agree.
We got into a debate about Scoot and like Shaedon. Like, it truly is like a eye of the beholder with them a little bit, but it is unquestionable that Deni and Toumani have both been wins. And Deni, like, he was already a success before March, and then in March he had his best stretch of the season. So it just has gotten better.
And you know what I keep thinking about, and I think that you may have brought up this point before, but imagine Deni Avdija in a basketball environment where he had people around him who could shoot a little better, because I just think that would open things up even more. Like, I don't know, like again, national podcasts that I tend to listen to frequently have, at least in my brain, I remember them saying, well, Deni Avdija is really like a floor raiser and not really a ceiling raiser. And I'm not sure I agree with that. I would love to see Deni Avdija on a really, really good team. Maybe not like as the sixth man, but playing that kind of like interstitial lineup primary ball handler role. Like, I don't know. Like, and I also think he could close. I also think he's like, I don't know, like a good defender too. Like, I mean, he does
so many things. He's like a glue guy. He's like a hyper, a glue guy on steroids. Like, he does all the little things, but he
Super
also
glue guy.
He's like super glue. Nickname?
New
Possible nickname created.
Turbo's a little played out. Let's go with super.
Super glue. No, because Turbo super glue.
That's pretty funny. I like it, and I could see like an anthropomorphic tube of super glue with the jersey on, and like I just envisioned it, and it was very funny.
I just want to say though, I agree 100% with what you're saying about if it's like people are like, oh, well, Deni's not an all-star, and it's like, well, yes, it's like the number one option on a team. I don't think so either. But if he's like the third guy, and like the teams have to imagine if you're a team dealing with like a superstar. And then he kicks it out to Deni Avdija, and now you have to deal with him, who can give you like 20 and 10 and like 7 on any given night. So I think that's his most natural role, and like in that way, I could see him sneaking in. Like if I could see him sneaking into an All-Star game in that role, I think he's that good.
Yeah. I think he's that good too. It's also just like, again, just to repeat how fun it is to watch him play, which is just fun for me as a fan / writer of the team / podcaster of the team. Do you have anything else that you want to hit on before we call it a day?
No. I think we got to all the thoughts that were on my mind.
And if you want to know what's on our mind, you can always find us at WeLikeTheBlazers.com. We're also on Blue Sky. Check out Conor Bergen. Check out Brandon Mullen. We're there. We're also at Blazers Edge. Check us out there. You should also check out a couple of other podcasts, which are also in the Blazers Edge podcast family. Trail Daddy with Dave Deckard and Rip City Roundtable with Cory Dickman. That's pretty much it. I appreciate you all. It was good to talk Blazers, and hopefully we won't make it this. Actually, quick programming note. I'm going to cut the outro music. I'm in Portugal for 2 weeks. Goodbye. Sorry, not sorry. I will not be podcasting from the Portuguese Atlantic, but boy, is it going to be fun. So, cheers to me and Cassie. It's going to be great.
Cheers to Portugal.
Cheers to Portugal. That's it. Appreciate you all. And until next time, go Blazers.